All right, you guys are seeing my screen?
Yep, seeing the screen. Great. Hey, thanks everyone. Just want to thank everyone for joining today. We are going to go over an overview of Polaris. I also wanted to call it before we do this. This is probably the last meeting we're going to have for this technical architecture forum for some period of time. We are going to move towards doing upstream or community meetings for planning as well as for reviews. That's going to get kicked off in probably about 2 weeks or so. So this actual series of calls is probably to go on hold until we have another need to bring everybody together for architecture-related content. Otherwise, we'll just have these in these newer SIG planning calls that will start probably about the second week of October. So Wes, it is all yours to get going.
All right, thanks, John. Appreciate it. Hi, my name is Wes Hayutin. If you don't know me, I'm an engineering manager with the migration engineering team. And today we're going to talk about Polaris. One quick note about this demonstration, I am going to be moving from tab to tab. I'm not going to go full screen. There is also a shared teammate that is posted in the chat here. I recommend opening up another browser window so you can see the slides and the teammate together to kind of get the full picture. Great. All right, so what is Pelorus? We define Pelorus as a dashboard for organizational alignment and transparency around trends towards shared outcomes. What are shared outcomes? In this context, we're going to be talking about software delivery performance. Making adjustments from organization to organization or from app to app to improve your quality and your agility in your deployments. Polaris originally, the original Polaris was a maritime tool that didn't exactly point to north or tell sailors where to go, but it did help them get their bearing, make small adjustments, and get back on track. That's what we're trying to do here for software engineering organizations. Pelorus works with popular source control management systems, issue trackers to gather the data that we need for these measurements. And the real goal here is to give organizations the tooling to have unbiased conversations, not just use your gut. This team looks to me like they're able to get their fixes and patches out without bugs. Much better to have that kind of conversation across multiple organizations if you can do it in an unbiased fashion with metrics instead of using gut level. I think maybe this team is better than the other, or this app is working more effectively than the other. Anyway, that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to measure. So with this being a baking show, this is what Pelorus looks like on a per app basis. And I'm going to, at the top of the demonstration here, start a cooking show or baking show, and we'll let things bake a little bit as things install and data gets into the system, and then we'll come back and revisit the live install. So I think we can get this done in less than 5 minutes. I don't know if you want to time me, you're welcome to. We'll see how it goes. If you want to see the steps that I'll be driving through today, we have some of that documented here in this top link in this demo. And then to build the applications and get the data into Pelorus that we'll be measuring, we have a nice Tecton demo that goes through that. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into my teammate. Again, that is in the chat. And well, first in the baking show, I have to show the oven is empty. Nothing is installed here. So, okay. All right, so the first step is to install my operators. This is going to install just the Grafana and Prometheus standard OpenShift operators. That should just, this is actually probably the longest part of the install here. probably about 20 more seconds for those to be up and running. I do have the details of my configuration. And if you look at my teammate, actually, you'll see all the commands I'm running today in this top right-hand pane. Trying to be as transparent as possible. So those are coming up. 2 more seconds probably. Okay, so now we're ready for the Polaris install, which should just take about 10-15 seconds. All right, great. So we have some of our exporters coming up at the moment, and you'll see, we'll get into that in the slide deck here shortly. And almost fully baked. Okay, Pelorus is done installing. You can see some of the output from some of what we call exporters here. And I had some old data that I wasn't able to clean up right before this demo, but that's okay. Okay, so now I'm going to kick off 3 different types of builds using Tecton, and I'll show that here in a second. The first one is a standard OpenShift source manifest. The second one here in the middle pane on the bottom, I can cut and paste, is a binary build for organizations that can't have their code up in regular source control. So government, NSA, whoever's listening to us right now. And then finally, the third is a standard Tecton source to image task. And this does a really good job of simulating if you have to build your images outside of OpenShift completely, let's say Jenkins, GitLab, whatever other system you have, we can, as long as the image is in OpenShift as it's being deployed, which it has to be, we can measure it for you. Okay. So that's going to delete some of my old data and then create a commit and then build an application in the 3 different ways I just spoke to, and then test the app is up, and then also that the data got into Pelorus correctly for us. So great. So while the cake is now baking. So with that, all right, so software delivery performance is what we're trying to measure. In any good experiment, I'm sure you've seen this slide before. You want to collect, assess, make a small change, execute that small change, and remeasure. Are you going in the direction that you want? Or was that a bad change? Pelorus will help you have that conversation around software delivery performance. And we have 4 key metrics for software delivery performance. Those are lead time to change, deployment frequency, mean time to restore, and change failure rate. We didn't come up with these metrics. They were created by an organization named DORA. DORA stands for Devops Research and Assessment. That all came out of some literature from the last few years around DevOps. In the industry is crazy about DevOps work. These are some books, especially the Accelerate book there, helped inspire what we're seeing now in Pelorus. So what are these 4 metrics that Dora came up with? The first one, lead time for change. This is a measure of market agility. The time your application is deployed to production minus the last commit on that image. And we'll get into these a little bit more if it's not quite making sense yet. Deployment frequency, also market agility. How often are you deploying to production? Small changes we're considering better. from the literature. Incremental changes make it easier for customers to consume that, easier to get small features out, bug fixes, security fixes, etc. Small changes in lots of deployments with a high degree of quality is kind of what we're aiming for. Now, on the flip side, the measures of reliability. MTR, mean time to restore. How long does it take for the bug to be resolved? You opened a bug, and then you get the fix in, your deployment with that fix, and then that bug getting closed. That is your mean time to restore. And then your change failure rate is the last one here. This is the total number of production level bugs over the total number of deployments in that specified time frame. And everything is measured in a specified time frame here. So an organization can look at these 4 metrics, look at the current quarter of this year, and then maybe compare it to the same quarter a year ago and say, and see, did we improve? Did all our organizations improve, or just the one? Okay. Moving on. So it's easy to like throw these 4 metrics up and say, this is the way to measure everything. But when you look at all the various things in a software engineering organization that can impact these 4 basic measures, then it starts to become a little bit more real. So we'll go through these one at a time. This is, I think, is one of the most important slides in this presentation. So you have lead time for change. If your engineers are not engaged, if they're not happy and running to their keyboards in the morning to go fix your bugs, or to go get that latest feature implemented, your lead time for change is not going to be as good as it can be. So measuring lead time for change can in fact tell you how well your engineers are working and engaged in your organization. How well are they looking at their colleagues' code and doing code reviews? Do you have unit and integration tests? That's an easy one. We all should, right? And but do they run in the same way on a developer's laptop as they run up in your CI system? Is your CI system fast and reliable? Something we all might be familiar with here. And this varies over time and varies by team to team, from organization to organization. Deployment frequency. How well can you get this code out into production? So there's a lot of new ways of thinking about deployments, GitOps being a very popular one. I just did a presentation for the machine learning ops group, which is taking GitOps and then adding machine learning for autocorrecting issues with your deployments in live, and measuring that. There are, if you read the GitOps literature, there's like 10 major milestones in reaching all the things that the industry thinks you should be doing for GitOps. Do you have one organization that's gotten through 2? Do you have another one that's maybe gotten through 8 or 9? Is the one that has gotten through most of GitOps actually performing better than the one that is just starting? You can have these conversations now in an unbiased fashion with Pelorus. If you're not engaged in GitOps, MLOps, or all the new trends, do you at least have checklists? Checklists work for things like launching rockets to the moon, or your surgeon hopefully has a checklist before they go in and saw off your leg if needed. It could be as basic as that. Security scans, improved change management if you have other teams actually doing the deployments for you. These can all vary over time and across teams, and that's what you want to be able to see. Mean time to restore. Hopefully, you have automated rollback strategies to get the latest commit off of production and then re-rolled out. Do all your teams have that? Do you have a dev stage and production environment? Does your stage environment actually look like and work like production? And do your developers have access to an environment that adequately mimics production? Can vary from team to team. Distributed deployment and failover is another thing that can help you restore more quickly. On change failure rate, again, the number of bugs you have compared to the number of deployments you're going out with. What's your planning look like? Do you have an engineer possibly adding a feature that may not have been discussed and planned as a group or with PM? Maybe that caused a production level issue. Are you holding retrospectives on production failures and trying not to repeat yourself? Again, in at least my time, these things all vary greatly from team to team, from app to app, and should be measured so that we can all get in alignment and then correct our bearing in software engineering. Okay. So let's look a bit at the architecture of Pelorus. Pretty simple stuff here. We have OpenShift standard metric monitoring in Prometheus. We have a standard front end to Prometheus in Grafana to help you visualize all the data from Prometheus. We have a standard backend for Prometheus and Thanos for long-term storage of this data. You can store it in OpenShift or out in the cloud for long-term safety. We're also taking advantage of a Prometheus feature known as exporters. We have 3 different types. We have commit time, deploy time, and failure. Now, you can think of an exporter as just a bot or some tooling to reach out to these data sources, source control management, issue trackers, gathering the data we need to take these measurements, and then building Prometheus metrics on top of that and getting them into the system to be read. Okay. So a little bit more on the formulas we'll use here. Now, I mentioned to John before I went into this meeting that I didn't get a chance to clean up, and I might have a couple stale physical volumes, but we'll see. The cake should be baking, but in any good demo, you have a snafu. So we might have a snafu here. Yes, indeed we do. That is unfortunate. So
it's all good, Wes. Risking the demo gods doing it live, man.
It's the demo gods doing it live. Oh, that is. If I go back though, I deleted all those artifacts. That is a shame. That is a shame. Okay, well, if you hang on with me, maybe when I'm through this slide deck, I'll clean up some of these physical volumes. This is a Tecton thing, but we can see in my pipelines here that, pipeline runs, yes, that we're building and we're failing because of my physical volumes. Well, any good demo, right? Okay, so we'll carry on. Okay, so the commit exporter is trying to get more in-depth transparency in how we're making these calculations. Deploy time minus commit time. We support GitHub, GitLab, Git, Bitbucket, and Azure DevOps. The deploy time, this is the simplest metric of them all. It's the number of deployments in a defined interval of time. And like I said, for deployments, we support any kind of build that OpenShift can do, and builds outside of OpenShift as well now. For the change failure rate, little more clarity here. Number of failed changes over the total number of changes to the system. We support Jira and GitHub issues, and ServiceNow has some work left to do for full support. The mean time to restore, we take that bug resolution timestamp minus the creation timestamp, and then take the average, and then for that interval of time. Same backends supported here. If you want to look a little bit more in depth of the actual Prometheus queries that we're running, we wrote a little tool to help expose that. That's in our source code. You can run view grafana queries.py. Also, if adjustments need to be made, or if you need a specific query, you could add them, and then they'll also be displayed via this tool. Another view into the support that we have, again, any kind of build, lots of upstream source control management systems, and our failure exporter with GitHub and Jira. Okay, so this is a view into your software delivery performance score. Pelorus provides a bridge between development, operations, and leadership, allowing them to better communicate about what software features to work on, what bug fixes, infrastructure improvements, and process improvements are in line with the overall vision. Are we improving the organization's agility, quality, and stability over time? Okay, a look into our Tekton demo. This is now built to support all the what we think are the critical build types. You can see that in live as well. Unfortunately, the physical volumes and Tekton, I don't know why this happens exactly, but they do need to be refreshed from time to time, and I did not get that done before the demo. So our checkout is failing. If the checkout worked, we have some nice debug here. Actually, I might have some old ones here that worked. Probably better to show those. Yeah. So I'm not getting the logs because they were deleted. That's okay. Again, dancing, dancing, dancing. At any rate, we'll list the files out for you for your application that was checked out, and then make the decision tree on how to build. The build will happen, and then at the end, we'll make sure that the app is running correctly, curling the app for, in this case, it's just a simple Hello World app. And then we'll also curl into our metrics over here and see if we got the correct one. Everything I'm using for this demo today, even the stale physical volumes, are listed on this slide. These are the values for my Polaris deployment. The only thing that changes here is the org is Wes Hayutin. That would be the only thing that you'd need to change. So we have some documentation on the Tekton demo here. And if you need a more complicated setup, we've done a lot of updates to our configuration for Pelorus here. I have not opened up a bug. I could do that right now. And that probably will come through just fine. So we're not going to see the first two metrics in this particular demo, but I think we'll be able to get the failure side, mean time to restore. Actually, that may not be the case because it is associated with a particular deployment, but we can see it enter into Pelorus. So we could say bug 1. Oh no, production is down. Our demo is down. So for Pelorus to properly read it, you need to label it as a bug, and then you need to tell Pelorus which application is failing. And you do this again with another label. We have 3 apps running here in the background. demo app 1, 2, and 3, the different build types. So you just label demo app 2, submit the issue, and then we should see that read into our failure exporter here. And this is where the mean time to restore metric is generated from. To get the resolution time, simply just close the bug, and then you will find demo app 2. So the one thing I can do here pretty quickly is I'm going to go back to my terminal real quick. Just go to here, temp Polaris, and do one deployment so we can at least see one. Mongo persistent. So that's going to build one of the demo apps that we use in migration engineering, do a deployment, and then we'll see sure, yes. Pelorus measure that. Yes, it is gonna, it's on a per namespace value here, and we're monitoring 4 namespaces. So we'll at least see that data come in. Okay. So we just released Polaris 2.0 last week. That is our first minimal viable release. At this point, we've probably closed about 120 bugs since the start of the year, made the install very fast, streamlined. Configuration is a lot easier than it was in the past. We have config maps, and the documentation and demo tooling have been improved a lot as well. These are some of the other features that we're very proud of, probably also best viewed in our release notes that we put out. So if you have a moment, feel free to review that. What's coming up? What's our roadmap for Pelorus? Just got that MVR out. Now we're shifting gears to create a OpenShift Helm operator to make it easier to install. And help us track the number of Pelorus installs out in the field, and work with consulting to see that as well. We want to get Kubernetes support also by the end of the year. And also some of the feedback we've gotten is from customers is that while out in the field, the door metrics are important, but we also have this 1 or 2 other thing that we want to measure. So we're going to put together example custom metrics, exporters, and the display in Grafana so folks can make Pelorus work in their particular environment fairly easily. If you want to keep track of what we're up to, we're all upstream. Konveyor, Pelorus, discussions, issues. If you have anything going on, if you want a feature, if you found a bug, you can watch our progress. Everything you need to know, all our planning is done upstream. All right, and with that, we are done with the demonstration. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I can take them now. I can also, okay, so we have one deployment here now. We should see that Mongo app, even though our demo apps are not. See the, we had one deployment, and the commit, the last commit in that particular repository was almost 6 days ago. So if we want, we can hang on, and I get this fixed up as I take questions. Happy to do so.
Wes, well done. Excellent dancing. Excellent dancing.
Not as I drew it up, unfortunately. Yeah, Aziza.
Yeah, so to what, thanks for the demo. So it was a great presentation. So to what I understand is it's a dashboard for measuring software delivery performance. And so while it does that, so how do we measure the software delivery success of this? Is there any key performance indicators which is set, which can tell us like, okay, it's a success, or is just like how is it done in Polaris? Just curious, like.
Well, so these are all just measurements over time, right? So it's not, if you have a particular goal of being able to do, let's say, a release every week, then yeah, for your organization, Polaris would be able to tell you, yes, you are successful. We have a deployment every week and we don't have any bugs. And then it would allow you, if you want to scale that goal out to other teams, compare that to other teams or at an aggregate level for like 5 teams. Are you all able to do a production deployment once a week without issues? Then Pelorus might say, yes, you are successfully going to where you need to go. But it's really up for you to set the goal. This tool, again, is not a compass where it points directly at a goal, but more of one to give you the ability to measure changes, to tell you if you are in the direction of the goal you want to get to. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question correctly? Like there's no DORA metric that will say like, yes, you are successful. It's really up to you to define your goals, and then this will help you measure where you're at in that path.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah. Oh, we got a question from James. We do have a production Polaris that is measuring our releases as a deployment. When I set that up, I did not correctly set the retention time. So it doesn't have any of our history, so I didn't include it in this demo. But we are dog fooding, as we've mentioned in the past. And that is actually done with one of those custom exporters that we are going to use as an example for other organizations to write their own custom metrics and exporters and data.
Cool, thanks, Wes. Yeah, one thing I was curious, like just looking at this, you've got the replatforming, refactoring pieces of Konveyor, right? Like code assessment, and like just thinking about how you have an app inventory, you make a change to an app to modernize it, and then once it's on the platform, I guess you could start measuring it with this, right? Like somehow have that, like it makes sense in the story. I don't know if there's any technical merit to doing anything beyond just having the tools available, right?
Right. It is kind of interesting. There was an engagement from the metric-driven transformation team over the course of the last 3 or 4 months with Bank of America, and they went through. They took these calculations by hand and then put them into slides, and it was something that was like the before and after scenario. It was something that was a real surprise to at least at the executive level of how long it was taking for. It's a very controlled environment. It's a bank. Their change management system is very strict, and how long it actually took a team of engineers to get the request through to get a new app in their system running. And then they did the after slides, and they were really appreciative of the Red Hat team for kind of highlighting that to them, even though that was just slideware. So having that in real time, it's my expectation they would really appreciate a system like this. Yeah. Yeah, Shubham.
Hey Wes, great demo. Thank you for that. I just have one question. Is there any plan to like consider context let's say deployment frequency, right? It doesn't signify the quality of software delivered, the number of deployments done. It depends on the context, right? Whether it's a rapid development going on, or like whether it's a maintenance mode, or like.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So if you had one organization that was rapidly developing a new piece of software versus one that was on maintenance mode.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing built into this that would like provide the context. But I could see you customizing dashboards such that you had organizations that were in more of a slower pace maintenance mode being compared to other teams in that same way versus the groups that are, rapidly developing something new. So that would probably be a dashboard customization, which is fairly trivial to do.
Okay, but we can't modify the metrics as of now, right? Like,
it would still be measuring the same thing for these groups. You would just notice perhaps that the maintenance teams are a good measure on their deployment frequency is once a month on time. You might be more interested in the bugs in production at that point versus on the rapid development team that has like a beta out. You want to see more commits, more deployments, and not get so concerned with the number of bugs being opened.
Yeah, I would say help. It would help with the visibility. Yeah.
Right. No.
Wes, when you're talking about bugs being open, so is it monitoring bugs on Git or GitHub only, or like we can connect it to different bug management systems?
Yeah, it can. We support Jira and GitHub at this time. There is some support that we have to work on for ServiceNow. It's meant to be agnostic to the various source control, GitHub, GitLab, Git, and be agnostic to the various issue trackers that groups may have, and then just pull in the data that we need and then form it in a similar way. Yeah.
Oh, great. So it's kind of like pull the inputs from different sources and present what the metrics. Yeah, great.
Correct.
Thanks.
Correct.
Any more questions for Wes? All right, Wes, I think that wraps it up. Russ, that was excellent. Just an excellent demo. Great.
Thank you, John.
Good stuff there. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Before we wrap up, I just want to let everyone know we've been holding these meetings probably for about a year, and we've been doing them on a monthly cadence. This is the last meeting we're going to do for some period of time. We're going to pause these. We're pausing these because starting next week, we'll be on a weekly cadence. Every Thursday, we will have some form of a Konveyor community meeting. We're going to alternate where we'll have every other week a meeting for everybody to come to talk about community issues, to see demos, things like that. Then the alternating week, we're going to go more into technical details, planning discussions, and then architecture-related things in what we're calling planning or triage calls. So you'll see those invites coming through probably about a week from now, and then they'll start going next week. Pretty much everything comes through. So thank you, everyone, for attending.
Okay.
Thanks, John.